like all of a sudden fragile management, and you have to decide. They said to me, don't cut the charities. We were giving away a lot of money. And United Way came to see me and said, this is a good chance for you to prove yourself to Chicago, that you're charitable. And by the way, if you don't kind of increase the giving, it can make your name not so good in Chicago. And basically, once I figured out what I had to do, I told people it's the other way around. Everyone's going to give. It's like everyone's going to cut, everyone's going to give, every charity, every person, every department, every executive, so that I told United Way, excuse me, this is about my reputation. I said, I'm about to lay off 10,000 people. I'm cutting your contribution. And if you insult this company or me, you'll never get a contribution again. I told the executive management people, I took away their cars, their clubs, their SERPs, their 401k matches. I took away their matching gift programs, the financial planning, and they weren't that happy. And I met with them in rooms like this. I said, because folks, those are entitlements. We're going to lay off people. You're in good shape. They aren't. And we, collectively, are to blame. And I want you to stand forward and be proud that you're cutting your stuff first. And some people get it and some don't. I was completely honest with the board. And in fact, I cut the board. I cut the board comp. And once I started explaining to them why, you know what they said? Absolutely, you should cut us too. No, but I'm saying, people will stand up and say, you know what, you're right, if we want to save this company, and you got to really be kind of forceful and do it, because a lot of people, you're like a deer in the headlights, and the forces want to stop you from doing anything. We had multiple systems and platforms, and they said, don't touch that because customer service will get worse. I said, folks, we're going to consolidate all of them. Hired 3,000 engineers and programmers to do it. And then you start to have some successes. But what I did not do is spend a lot of time trying to improve morale, other than talking to people and telling the truth. So that, I said, look, the game here isn't to me to convince you everything's going to be okay. We have to work hard to make it okay. This is hard work, and we're going to do the work. And morale will get better. People do terrible things in the name of morale. They don't touch any of those perks. They don't touch anything. They compromise every decision, and you end up doing a lot of the wrong stuff.
Makes sense. I want to come to taking over the leadership reins at JP Morgan Chase. And let me first say, the number of times that the leader of the target becomes the CEO of the buyer can be counted on the fingers of one hand in any given year, maybe the fingers of one finger. This is a very rare occasion. So you're coming in, the JP Morgan folks are looking at you and say, wait a minute, we bought you, how come you're leading us?
Yeah, I do get a lot of that, yes. And worse than that, they pay a premium.
Right. And we're paying a premium for a firm that was struggling, so what on earth are we paying for?
Yeah, so JP Morgan was the bigger company. And I were negotiating. He was going to be my boss, but I have to negotiate with him. And they're pretty tense times, and he kept on saying merge of equals, merge of equals, merge of equals.
Yeah, right.
And usually a merge of equals is, you share the name, you share the, so it could be Bank One or JP Morgan Chase. Someone's chairman and someone's CEO. It's someone's city. I said, Bill, where's the merge of equals in this? It's going to be called JP Morgan Chase. It's going to be in New York. You're going to be the chairman and CEO. That's not a merge of equals. So you got to pay a premium. And but we always knew. Part of the deal was that I'd become CEO in 2 years. It was part of the contract. And both he wanted that, their board wanted it, and my board insisted on it. Because, and Bill would say, the most important thing for CEO is to make sure your success is in place. He probably would have preferred to have stayed longer, but he said, you know what, if I don't get this guy, someone else will, Bank One will do something different, and this is what we want to do. Right. So, and I think, again, a testament to him and a lot of other people in the company, you didn't see anything about this deal. Like, in other deals with John Reed and Sandy Weil and John Mack and Phil Purcell and, at Credit Suisse, first one, major blow-ups and public. Nothing. Just systematic, things getting fixed, leadership change taking place, no upheaval.
Right. I want to think a little bit about the strategy at JP Morgan Chase. You've got, and let me sort of phrase this in terms of how you balance what I'll call exploitation and exploration, where exploitation is essentially you've got this very diversified financial services business. If I counted right, you're in 17 countries, 17 states, 50 countries, constantly adding things, constantly paring things away. So there's a real challenge just to make sure that the stuff you've got works well. And at the same time, you're constantly moving. You're moving into China, you're moving elsewhere in Asia, so you're constantly exploring new spaces. And I'm very curious about how you as a strategist find a way for you and for the rest of the company, for your team and the other folks in the company to balance this need to make sure things work well, and at the same time look for new opportunities?
Right. So the first thing is, I think when you get to a company like JP Morgan Chase, is set the organization up right. I call it like organizational architecture. Like, how do you set it up? So we have 6 businesses, and they all actually deeply relate to each other, which I won't go into really, but if you think about it, 5 of our businesses, everything but the global investment bank, the average regional bank does. They do credit card, debit card, retail, middle market, cash management, private banking and stuff like that. And the global investment bank, they even try to do some of that, maybe a few little derivatives, a little bond underwriting, a little advice, but obviously they can't compete with the very large global investment banks. And the management team, and I just saw Steve Black, who's the head of the CEO of the investment bank, walk in. We get together once a month, spend the better part of a day in dinner, and weekly, but usually much shorter. And a lot of that stuff is done together. And the first thing we had to do was run the place better. So if you had looked at JP Morgan Chase / Bank One, you would have said, hey folks, you weren't really performing up to snuff. And you don't, so your margins are too low, your return on capitals are too low, we've disappointed the marketplace, we had a lot of issues and problems, we had multiple systems again. So the first thing was to execute well. Get the company performing well. That creates all the other options. So I never took my eye off of that. Let's run the business better. Our costs were too high, we were too bureaucratic, but not one decision is like me sitting in some tower somewhere saying, we're going to do this. It's that group of 12 or 15 make those decisions. Every one of them is involved in, and very rarely is it like somehow I have to make a decision and that's the divided one. Usually the answer's waiting to be found. And if you also looked at JP Morgan Chase at each business, so take the global investment bank, these actually were world-class businesses that were underperforming, as opposed to businesses that had bad strategic position. And so if you looked at it and kind of did like a heat map, you would have said, you've kind of got everything, but why aren't you better in mortgages? You never built the energy business, you should be better in France in this, you should be doing more mortgages or MPLs in Germany, you need to expand your footprint in China, but that's, you're talking about, that's just tactical, that's not strategic. Right. But the value of those tactical things, billions of dollars of profit. So again, it's the first thing you should do. So strategically, get the tactical stuff. Right. I say a lot of this wasn't just low-hanging fruit, it was fruit on the ground. It was just waiting there to be picked up, Right. And so the biggest strategic issues, so like a lot of us are going to Asia and the Middle East next week, or the week after next week, and we're going to go through country-by-country reviews. Are we being aggressive enough in India, China, Korea, Japan, as a company level? And we're going to do that at the company level, not just the business level. And my guess is out of that, we'll probably have a slightly more aggressive plan. We do have one big strategic issue, gap. So look at the United States, we're in all 50 states, but retail we're in 20, but we have 100 million credit card holders. But here's geographic, kind of simple stuff. And because we've got management teams and systems in place, the next deal we do in the United States regionally, we'll be able to consolidate everything in 9 months. We can almost consolidate it the day we close. Costs drop instantly, the place will be better run, and the new company gets better systems, better products, and better services. And that goes something for the client. But the biggest strategic gap is consumer overseas. And that is a much more complicated thing since we don't have any. So if you said, compared to other people, we're nowhere, and Citi's been doing it for 100 years. HSBC's been doing it for 100 years. And so we've got to figure out how we're going to go about it our way.
Right. I mean, and in some sense takes me to the second part of strategy. I mean, because if you think of strategy, part of it is making sure you execute flawlessly and just drive costs down, take advantage of what you've got. The other piece is to differentiate, to find ways to be different than your competitors. And right now, you've pulled the company back up so you're reasonably close to the frontier of the industry, but you're still lagging it slightly.
We are, yes.
What thoughts do you have about differentiation, what places you can go that will allow you to create extra value?
It reminds us about leadership, too. One of the most important things is that you are very honest about stuff, that you actually acknowledge where you are. So, a lot of these companies I've been at, and I'm not just talking about Bank One or JP Morgan Chase, but companies we had acquired before, they didn't say we're doing terribly. So, if you're all running the business, and we're meeting one day, and I'm talking about how great we're doing, and we're doing terribly, how are we going to actually fix it? We're not even acknowledging the shortcomings. So it's to acknowledge it. And the other thing is this enormous press focus on cost cutting. Honestly, it is a sideshow. So when I get to